invited the one and only Phil Owen to have a chat with me. Phil, for my money, is the coolest man in the games industry. He's a man who has a shirt with his own face on it. I don't think that gets enough traction. But he's also been in the industry for a long time. And if anyone could give some insights and find some positive streams from this, I'm sure Phil's the man. So, Phil, tell us all about yourself, where you're at, what you've been doing, and we'll jump into your career a little bit later.
So, yeah, I'm currently the head of engineering at d3t. The engineering department is now up to 104 programmers, which
Wow.
we passed the milestone of 100 programmers in January, which I was really pleased about.
Wow.
I've been knocking around the games industry for, I think it's my 27th year in total. About 39 games, I think, released. And it's always been around the northwest of England, Manchester, Liverpool area. And I've been lucky enough to work with some really good companies and make some really good games.
1994, weren't it, when you got started?
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, I bet you've seen a lot of changes in that time. But I'm interested to know first, what made you decide that you wanted to get in the games industry?
I started programming in the 80s, really, on the first generation of home computers, Spectrum, Commodore, Atari ST, Amiga, all of those sorts of things. I started playing games and, really rapidly started to think, how is this done? How did they make this game? How did they provide this fun and enjoyment that I'm getting to... So then started just to teach myself how to program, and I was probably towards the end of my secondary school, I suppose, and then went to university and did a degree in engineering, and then was lucky enough to start working as a junior programmer. But I worked while I was in university, I was working my summers in QA department. I was lucky enough to have got my foot in the door there, really. And then once I'd finished my degree, I was lucky enough to get a job as a junior programmer, and that's pretty much how it all started.
I suppose like that gateway for getting in the games compared to now, it's not the hotbed of competitiveness that we see nowadays. What was it like? Was it pretty much just turning up and asking if there were a job, or
it was literally, I know it's a cliche, but it was literally, it's not what you know, it's who you know back then. And I was lucky enough to know people who worked in the games industry and were lucky enough to give me a job in the QA department, paying me 50 quid a week. And, it kept me in beer, and that was all I required really at the time. Nowadays it's totally different. It's a completely different outlook. This was back in the days when I started, it was still people programming in the bedrooms, and it wasn't the multi-million, billion-pound industry it is now,
Yeah. Where did you start? Any highlights in your career before d3t?
Well, I started working at a company called Digital Image Design, which was based in Warrington, which was a flight simulator, hardcore flight simulator, F-22, F-2000, all those sorts of games. And then moved over to Rage Games in Liverpool, and then to Warthog in Cheadle, and to then effectively landed at Traveller's Tales in Knutsford and Wilmslow, and was there for 11 years doing the little Lego games. So I think, 18 Lego games in 11 years, I think I did. So it was quite full on, but I'm really proud of the work I did there. And we had some really good games working on some fantastic IPs, lucky enough to be on Star Wars and Batman and Indiana Jones and Jurassic World and Harry Potter and all those amazing, IPs that you got a chance to work on. So really lucky.
Yeah. It looks like you've got a bit of cadence there with your career, because obviously you were there for like best part 11 years, I think. And you've been at d3t for 6 now. So, what are the biggest things you've noticed? I suppose from TT to d3t, because that's a big proportion and a lot of things have changed at that point. What do you think the good things have come out of that, and what are the things you'd like to go back to?
I think the good things, from a personal point of view, would be the experiences that I had working on some massive games. I think going from a company that had its own IP and its own brand of games to coming to a company like d3t that you can literally work on anything, any game at all, is a big step change and a big sort of mindset change. And also with d3t being outsourcing and actually helping people make other people make their games, it's a different mindset and it's a different challenge. And in general, I think throughout my career, I've always been drawn to challenges. You don't want to be, bored, I suppose, if a better way of putting it. But it's kind of, you want to drive your career forward and take on challenges that sometimes you look at and think, how am I going to solve this? And you sat there scratching your head for a while. But I think in general, continuing development of your skills and your knowledge and being eager to learn. And that's what I was. I probably was a pain in the ass because I was probably asking people way too many questions all the time, but that's a good thing, I think,
For sure, definitely. Absolutely. And what about d3t? Because I know when I first spoke with you, nearly 4 years ago, my mind is literally blown that you've got 104 coders now. So, I mean, what is it about d3t that has enabled you to grow to what you are now?
I think in general, the industry is moving more towards outsourcing. I think we've seen a shift over the past maybe 5-6 years of the games industry moving to more, I suppose, like the film industry works. It gets people in who they know that they can do the job. We make the game and then we move on to something else as far as outsourcing is concerned. So I think the days of giant companies with 400, 500, 600 employees are potentially moving away from, and we're moving towards a core set of developers at a company, and then they bring in outsourcers to then build the team up and make the game. And we're seeing a lot of that, and hence it's kind of allowed me to grow a team. I mean, when I joined d3t 6 years ago, I think there was 26 programmers. So, over 6 years, I've grown it to 104, and that's mainly through demand. If there wasn't demand, then I wouldn't have been able to do that. So,
well, yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about the big studios with the hundreds and hundreds of people in them. From the conversations I'm having with studios and people within the industry, that the lean studios are the ones who seem to have been affected the least with what's been happening. There's going to be a lot of learning from what's happened in the last year or so. Have you got any big takeaways from it?
I think it's pretty much probably the similar thing that most people have seen within the industry is it was inevitable post-COVID. I mean, there was a massive boom in gaming over COVID. Everyone was stuck in the house. Everyone was playing games. Everyone was buying games. We were all, hitting these highs of revenue and sales and all those sorts of things. And then as soon as, lockdown was eased and everyone started going to the pub again, or started going to football, or started going to cinema, and they weren't playing games. And it was inevitable that we would hit something like we are now with people being laid off. But the one thing about the games industry is that it's very, very, because it moves so quickly and it's very adaptable. It's quick to reimagine itself into something new and create a new way of working. And I've seen it so many times over the years that companies will grow, then people will be laid off, or the company will go bankrupt and be dissolved. But from that, like we've seen maybe from like Bazaar and Liverpool and places like that, other companies grow. People are still passionate about making games. They then little satellite companies grow in that area, and all of a sudden you've got another sort of different industry, another creative side, and that's the way the games has always worked. It has its highs, it has its lows, and then from its lows come new opportunities and new things, I think.
I'm really happy you're saying that, because I think fundamentally, away from the negative stuff, what's happening, and I know a lot of people have really suffered from it, but it forces something good to come out of it. So rather than it just eating itself into oblivion, you find people who push against and say, right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this better than how it was done before. And that's how game development's just going to grow and grow and grow, and the boundaries are going to be pushed, and it's going to keep things going, I suppose.
Yeah, and you always see it. It's, I mean, games industry is a relatively new industry compared to a lot of things. 40, 50 years, is it? And that's and the way it's moved and rapidly progressed over time. You have to adapt, and you have to be creative, and you have to push things forward, and that's what it's always done. And although it's a bit of a tough time at the minute for a lot of companies and for a lot of people, and I do feel for the people who are losing their jobs.
Yeah,
eventually that curve will change, and we will start going up again, and you'll see other companies being formed, new games being developed, and that again that's a good thing, and people will go again to another high eventually. I'm certain of it.
I totally agree. I'm interested to know how's it worked with d3t, how affected, because I don't think anyone's been fully unaffected by it. There's been a ripple where I've spoken to, but how have you guys navigated it? And
I think we've been really lucky in that most of the projects that we have been quite long term, and projects that we've built up relationships with clients for the past 2, 3, 4 years. So in a way, yes, we've lost there was a couple of projects that naturally came to an end. There was a couple of projects that were not really affected by it, but we kind of were lucky enough to have done the part we needed to play, and we moved on, for a better way of putting it, I suppose. So we've been very lucky, and touch wood, we will continue to be lucky that we haven't really felt too many ripples from the greater industry. But it's about just picking up the work where you can, positioning yourself well, and we've spent a lot of time building up a reputation that people have now starting to recognise, and we're known really for the quality of work that we do. And I think it's really stood us in good stead against this at the minute. I mean, fingers crossed, we'll continue to with our current clients, and we'll continue to produce solid work and good work. But it's I think it's a tough time, but we'll get through it.
I suppose it comes back to what you were saying about how you've seen the games development companies changing, like the outsourcers and the independents, for the most part, being the ones who have been affected as much, because they're not reliant on one solo project. Exactly. You're still going to need those solo project studios, but again, it'll come back to that leaner sort of organisation, and then getting the support elsewhere, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly, and it makes it just makes sense. And you look at the programming team that I have, we're building up so much knowledge that if somebody wanted to if a company has got a core members of staff to make a game, and they bring in outside knowledge, that means they can hit the ground running, and they can get to a position of full production quicker than they would have done before, then it makes sense to do those sorts of things instead of spending a lot of time and energy on recruitment to build a team. You can get a ready-made team almost within a few weeks of onboarding, really.
Yeah. So obviously, because of the current industry, and there's a lot of people looking for work. And I thought it'd be a really good opportunity as a hiring manager, someone who makes the decisions on who goes forward and who doesn't, to give a bit of insight on, what you want to see, what you don't want to see, and how you tie that in with the overall aims of the studio. So when you get a CV through from HR, what are the first things you're looking for?
From the standpoint, obviously, it'll all be related to programming. We are looking for good mathematics, good programming knowledge. It's vitally important that you also have a portfolio to go along with your CV, and that's what we look for. It's the pathways for a CV to land on our desk are quite numerous, and a degree is one way, but then if you're a budding programmer that's taught themselves and have got a good portfolio and really pushed themselves forwards as far as making games are concerned, then that's a good way too, or through an apprenticeship, or through taking on internships, things like that. So it's really about looking at their technical skill level. If they have a degree and they've done a degree in computer science, or in games development, or in physics, or whatever it might be, then yes, that's good. But having that portfolio and that showing their capabilities and their skill sets online with, whether they've written a game, doesn't matter if it doesn't look great, doesn't matter if it crashes, doesn't matter if it's full of bugs, we don't care, we'll play them. Yeah, we'll download them and play them, but it's about having a full suite of information to say, this is who I am. And then, that will then they will then stand out and be pushed forward for a test, for the programming test. And if they do the programming test well, then it's an interview. And if they think they'll fit in, then they'll probably get the job. So,
well, we obviously speak to a lot of grads as well. And like, the narrative is always, it's brilliant that you're doing a degree, but that isn't preparing you for a job in the games industry. That's teaching you how to do some rudimentary coding and development. So portfolio is everything. What about the experienced coder, the mid-level senior lead? How does that scrutiny change for them?
For certainly for mid and senior level, we will make a judgment call on whether we'd send them the programming test or not, dependent on their experience. We would always look at their experience. We would always look at the companies they've worked for previously, their job history, and then usually mid-levels we will send the programming test to just to quantify and qualify their programming knowledge. Seniors, we take a judgment call on whether to test them or not. Usually it's a no, because if you're a senior programmer, you've got 7, 8, 9 years in the games industry, you probably are fine, and an interview will do. I think that's kind of the way it works. But in general, though, from a senior lead principal programmer level, a lot of our applicants are referrals from people that already know people in the games industry, and they're looking to move on. Oh, I worked with them before. They're really good. That sort of conversations, because the games industry is pretty small, certainly in the UK and certainly in the North.
Yeah, and I suppose the bigger your team gets, the more of that network's going to grow as well, isn't it?
Exactly. So you can look at the senior CV and say, oh, they used to work at this place. Oh, Programmer X used to work at that place. Well, let's go and ask them. See,
let's have a chat.
Let's have a chat, and that's how it works. So that's where the referral system comes through, really.
So, in terms of like the detail you want to see on a resume CV, is it mainly length of service in place, where they've worked, how would that correlate with that? or do you want to see exactly what they've been doing, certain tasks, areas of development they've been working on?
I think it's very, very high level. We want to. You know yourself. We always talk about CV shouldn't be it shouldn't be more than 2 pages long. Sorry, and that's a good thing. I know some people have got have got quite a lot of information to put on their CVs, but just a high level cover what they actually were responsible for. Because if they come into an interview, we'll drill down into that interview and we'll say, okay, so you worked on this game, you said you did this, tell us about that. So, and that's when we find out more information. It's about being able to scan through a CV as quickly, well, not as quickly, but as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
Because you get a lot of them and know that this person stands out or that person stands out. It's not that we don't want to pay attention to them, but we get an awful lot of applicants. So having a brief overview of your skill sets and a portfolio, we'll probably spend more time on the portfolio than the CV, obviously, but
yeah,
it's about that package. You stand out, and your basically your application gets moved forward. Then,
yeah. So you were one of the early adopters in remote working during. Was it before COVID or?
No, it was. We had a couple of programmers that were working remotely before COVID, but that was mainly really due to the distance that they were away from the office, and they kind of came into the office 1 day a week because commute was a nightmare for them. So it was fine. We just supported there, but otherwise everybody was in the studio.
So how have you managed it? Because you've got 100 people, a lot working from home, culture-wise, making them feel together. And additional to that, when you're interviewing someone, how are you measuring their suitability based on the team you've already got?
Yeah, it's the number of meetings we had about this when COVID happened.
I can imagine.
We really what we did when lockdown eased, we kind of just adopted hybrid. We made the decision to adopt hybrid working. We have gone down the route of we'll have fully remote people who can, like myself, who are kind of hybrid, who come in 2, 3, 4 days a week into the office. And then there was certainly a number of people that really wanted full-time back in the office again straight away. That's what they preferred. So we supported it all. And through recruitment, we kind of tried to encourage the idea that if you were a graduate straight out of uni, it would be better for you to work in the studio than to work from home, although we would support that. But being on site, being surrounded by senior lead technical directors is a massive benefit to being in the office. But we didn't make it a requirement in any way. We just felt like we could advise people that this was probably the best way for you to learn, because I think it probably is.
Yeah.
But then you have to adopt and look at different ways of working on Teams or whichever, just to have regular catch-ups. Stand-ups are now all done on Teams every morning, and just having an increased amount of communication.
Yeah, communication's key, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's about, I wouldn't want to say it's over communication, because that can also be a pain, but I think it's the effective and the right manner of communication. And we have brought sort of ideas in of social rooms. So on certain days, we'll just have a Teams call that's open for people to drop in and drop out whenever they like on Teams and have a chat. And if someone is fully remote, they can pop into this chat room and just say, or this Teams call and just say, "Oh, do you know what? Has anybody else seen this on their build?" And then it kind of mimics the way that as closely as possible the way the social interactions of hearing someone talk in the kitchen or in the office in a not in as an effective way, but as tries to mimic it in a way. And we have that on most projects now, where there is just a drop-in chat room where people can ask Teams chat where people can ask questions and. Are people seeing the same thing as me? I've just got latest, or is your build crashing for you here? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Let's try and fix it. Those things like that.
Well, that's giving everyone the chance. I have had an idea, Phil, about this actually. I mean, you're probably a richer man than me, so run with it. But like robot video calls, so there's like robots on tracks with just a screen, and they can just go up to people and have chats. So you can run with that, mate. You can have it.
Well, no, I'll give it the due consideration.
Well, I think what I wanted to get out of that, I've got out of that insight from your experiences and the cycle and the cyclical nature of this industry and the green shoots of optimism. I think you've also given some real good insight on what you're looking for prospective employees to be hitting the markers. So we'll finish this chat bit up with, what's next for d3t? What's the plan? Anything you can tell us?
What can I tell you? Let me think. Well, I mean, we've got some great projects. Some of our projects are long term. Like, I can talk about the fact that we've been working with Playground now for a number of years. And, last year we released, we were working on FC24, and that was obviously one of the biggest titles. Well, is it the biggest title in the world? I think it probably is.
We could say it is, yeah.
Yeah, and, we're going to continue as we are, grow steadily, grow sensibly, continue to bring projects in that are focused on what people want to work on. We always, we could have easily in the past jumped to projects that were going to be extremely financially beneficial, but we've said no to because they weren't the right project for us. And I think that, from my point of view, is one of the strongest values that d3t has, is that we choose projects on what we think people will enjoy working on and not necessarily what's financially beneficial to us. So
that's leadership, isn't it, Phil? That's key decision making, leadership, and that's what this industry needs a bit more of.
Yeah, and it's about, like I say, we have a really good, strong leadership team here, which I'm part of, and we will continue to grow as we see as is driven by the game industry, by the market, and developing people's careers and helping people gain knowledge, greater insight into how games are made. All those sorts of things is something that is really important to me and to the leadership team here.
Well, I think that's the best way to finish that chat then, mate. Onwards and upwards, d3t. But legend, great seeing you as always. Thanks for your time. So, number one, tell me something positive about the games industry that no one else is talking about.
I think that right now the games industry is a fantastic place to work. It's creative. It's an environment of knowledge. It's an environment of skills. It's an environment of learning, and it moves quicker than any other industry on the planet. So get involved.
What advice would you give young Phil, just starting out in the industry?
What would I give? Stay positive. I think that would be my first one. Our game development's not easy. It's a really complex thing. But I think the biggest thing I've learned over the years is when you start making a game, the game that you end up making is nothing like the game you started off.
What's the most rewarding part of your job?
Seeing people's careers grow, seeing people progress, and helping them do so. With the experience that I've had and the experiences that I've gone through, just seeing people move through from being a graduate programmer all the way through to now seeing people at senior and lead level.
What developments or technical, what's the word? What developments or technical, what's the word? Innovation. That's it. What developments or technical innovations are exciting you most about the future?
I think having just come back from GDC and seeing in some of the Unreal 5 talks that they are really pushing things now with the development of games. You know, they're becoming the go-to, environment to work in. I also think in, the next iteration of hardware, where it comes from next, whether it be Sony or Nintendo or Microsoft, the hardware being pushed, we've got to keep up with. And I think that's where the innovation has always been, really, with the games industry. But yeah.
What direction do you see the industry taking in the next few years?
Oh, God. I think it will continue to move towards bigger and brighter things. The developments in software and hardware are meaning that games are looking more realistic. They're giving a more immersive, creative environment for gamers to play in, and I think that what we will see is games that are providing longer gameplay, more realistic graphics, more immersive AI reactions, more interactions with the game world, whether that be an NPC or the world itself. And I think that will only become more and more and more the hardware goes forward and more the software is developed.
Interesting. What's your favourite genre of game to play?
I love the Souls-like games, so Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Elden Ring. The brutally hard games that force people.
The gamers' names.
They force people to throw people's controllers across the room. Don't recommend it, but that's my genre, the Souls-like games.
Last question. What's your favourite snack?
Salt vinegar crisps.
Walkers.
Yep, the only true ones.